The voice was warm. The characters were iconic. And just like that, a Hollywood star completely vanished.
It really is one of the most baffling mysteries in recent pop culture history.
It truly is. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into a headline that has just been everywhere.
Right. The headline we are looking at today is New Details About Daveigh Chase's Final Years Emerge. And honestly, this one is it's devastating.
It really is. I mean, if you grew up in the early 2000s, you absolutely know this voice.
Oh, without a doubt. It was this warm, eccentric, fiercely loyal voice. The voice of Lilo from Disney's animated classic Lilo and Stitch.
Which is such a massive cultural touchstone.
Exactly. But then contrast that warmth with an image that probably gave you literal nightmares around the exact same time.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. The terrifying, rain-soaked girl crawling out of the television screen in the 2002 horror film The Ring, Samara.
Which is wild to think about, to anchor both of those things, to be the emotional core of a beloved Disney film, and then also the face of pure terror in a genre-defining horror movie.
Yeah, the range is unbelievable.
It really requires an incredible talent for any actor, let alone a child. And the talent behind both of those iconic roles was Daveigh Chase.
And she achieved massive success so early. She was also in the cult classic Donnie Darko.
Oh, yeah.
And she provided the English voice for Chihiro in Studio Ghibli's masterpiece, Spirited Away.
Such an amazing resume. But we aren't really doing a standard Hollywood retrospective today, are we?
No, we're not. Because we are looking at a profound, just multifaceted tragedy. Daveigh Chase recently passed away at the age of 35.
35, it's just so young.
It is. So the mission for our deep dive today is to sift through a whole stack of recent articles, interviews, and public statements to try and understand the mechanics of this tragedy.
Because there is a massive paradox at the center of this, right?
Exactly. Imagine possessing millions of dollars in a legally protected trust account, yet you are actively dying of starvation inside a nylon tent on Los Angeles' Skid Row.
It almost defies comprehension.
It does. How does a safety net hold so much wealth while completely failing to catch the person it belongs to? We have these incredibly painful and honestly often contradictory accounts from her mother, her former manager, and a man claiming to be her boyfriend.
It's a really murky, complex landscape to navigate.
Yeah, so we need to look beyond the headlines to understand the how and the why. We're going to impartially look at the conflicting narratives surrounding her final years.
Because when severe addiction intersects with, the bureaucratic machinery of Hollywood and the healthcare system, the narrative rarely moves in a straight line.
Right. It fractures.
Exactly. The accounts of the people involved are often fractured because addiction fundamentally warps reality for everyone in its orbit.
So true. So to understand those final days, we first have to examine the catalyst, the spark and the spiral.
Right. How did this all start?
Well, Daveigh's acting journey began almost entirely by chance. Back in 1998, her mother, Cathy, was in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the injuries left Cathy unable to drive for months, meaning the family was effectively stranded in Los Angeles instead of returning home to Oregon.
So they were just stuck there.
Exactly. And because they were stuck, Daveigh started pursuing acting. A physical trauma essentially launched her entire career.
Which is incredibly ironic because, tragically, a second physical trauma seems to be what dismantled it.
Right.
According to her mother, the major turning point in Daveigh's life was another accident. Around 2016, Daveigh was in a severe motorcycle crash that resulted in a broken back.
A broken back. I mean, the pain must have been unimaginable.
Absolutely. And to manage that immense pain from the spinal injury, she was prescribed strong painkillers, specifically oxycodone.
And this is where things take a dark turn. Because Cathy, her mom, points directly to this prescription as the gateway.
Yeah, she stated it led directly to a severe addiction to heroin and fentanyl.
She observed her daughter suddenly seeking out street drugs and, quote, partying with the wrong people. And I want to pause on this for a second.
For sure.
Because I always sort of pictured addiction as a slow, deliberate descent down a staircase.
Yeah.
Like a series of bad choices over time.
Right. That's the common misconception.
But looking at Cathy's account, it sounds more like a trapdoor in the brain's operating system.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. Like you are functioning normally, you have a career, resources, a whole life, and then a chemical flicks a switch and the floor just vanishes beneath you. It's a sudden free fall.
Your trapdoor analogy perfectly captures the biological reality of what is actually happening there. We often discuss the opioid epidemic in terms of broad statistics, but we rarely look at the underlying neurological mechanism.
Break that down for us.
Well, when someone experiences severe physical trauma like a motorcycle crash, they aren't just dealing with damaged bones. They are dealing with profound psychological trauma.
Right, the mental toll.
Exactly. And Cathy explicitly noted that Daveigh suffered from PTSD following the crash, which, importantly, was her only diagnosed mental health condition.
Okay, so how does that specific diagnosis, the PTSD, change the way the brain interacts with a painkiller like oxycodone?
Well, PTSD acts as a massive hidden accelerant for severe substance abuse.
Really? How so?
On a biological level, PTSD means the brain's alarm center, that the amygdala, is stuck in a state of hyperarousal.
Like it can't turn off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The nervous system is constantly scanning for threats, reliving the terror of the accident. The body is just flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. So when a doctor introduces an opioid like oxycodone, it obviously blocks the pain receptors in the spine. But crucially, opioids also artificially suppress that psychological terror.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that.
Yeah, they force the central nervous system into a state of profound artificial calm.
So the drug is basically doing double duty. It is fixing the broken back, but it is also muting the overwhelming psychological panic of the PTSD.
Precisely. And when the legitimate medical prescription inevitably runs out, which it always does, the brain isn't just anticipating the return of physical pain.
It's anticipating the return of the panic.
Yes, that overwhelming psychological terror. The brain has now been physically rewired to depend on that chemical to regulate panic. It demands a substitute.
So the survival instinct kicks in.
Exactly. And the brain prioritizes acquiring that chemical above food, shelter, or safety. That is the exact mechanism of how a legitimate medical treatment pivots into seeking out highly potent street drugs like heroin or fentanyl.
The biological floor simply gives out.
It drops right out from under them.
Quick reminder for everyone listening, if you're loving these deep dives and Hollywood twists, make sure you subscribe. We've got even crazier stories ahead and you won't want to miss them.
You definitely won't.
So getting back to Daveigh, this free fall leads to isolation, which brings us to a massively perplexing part of this story.
The timeline of her going missing.
Right. How does someone famous, someone whose face and voice are globally recognized, effectively go missing in plain sight for nearly a decade in a major hyper-connected city like Los Angeles?
It's a great question. And it requires a specific combination of industry enablers, the unique geography of LA, and a brutal reality of how addiction shrinks a person's world down to a single focus.
Let's track the timeline provided by her former manager, John Ryan Jr. He stated that he had not actually seen Daveigh since 2015.
2015, that is a decade ago.
I know. He had set up a major meeting for her with the director Rob Reiner. Reiner actually had a role specifically in mind for her.
That's a huge opportunity.
Massive. But the team called, she didn't show up for the meeting, and the manager realized something was wrong. But, and this is wild, they didn't immediately sound a catastrophic alarm.
Why not?
Well, Ryan noted that because Daveigh was naturally an introvert and didn't really care for the Hollywood glitz, the team assumed she was just taking time away. They figured she would resurface eventually.
See, that reaction highlights how easy it is to rationalize deeply erratic behavior in creative industries.
Oh, for sure.
In Hollywood, disappearing to, quote unquote, find yourself, or taking a sabbatical, or rejecting the spotlight, it's culturally normalized.
That almost romanticized.
Exactly. It provides a very convenient cover. An addict can retreat entirely into their disease, and their professional circle will initially categorize it as eccentric artist behavior rather than a medical emergency.
But while the industry looked the other way, her mother's alarm bells were ringing constantly.
I can't even imagine what she was going through.
Cathy's account of this 10-year gap is harrowing. She admitted she would routinely, often nightly, search the LA County Medical Examiner's online computer system.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She was scrolling through lists of unidentified bodies, terrified her daughter's name or description would pop up. The psychological toll of that being a parent's nightly routine is unimaginable.
It really highlights the absolute desperation of a family member who is locked on the outside of an adult child's addiction. The family knows the reality, even when the professional circle is still making excuses.
Cathy did actually manage to see her in 2019. Daveigh had been arrested for burglary, and Cathy visited her in the county jail.
How was she doing then?
Cathy described the encounter by saying her daughter was, quote, completely gone, out of her mind. She recognized that there was something profoundly wrong beyond just the immediate influence of drugs. The neurological damage was apparent.
That's so sad.
They made a strict plan for Cathy to pick her up the exact moment she was released. But the system released Daveigh a day early.
Wait, a day early?
Yes, she didn't wait, she didn't call, she just vanished straight back into the transient population of Los Angeles.
That behavior speaks directly to the insidious nature of the rewired brain we discussed earlier. The compulsion to return to the substance overrides everything else.
Even family.
Even family. The prospect of safety or shelter becomes secondary to the immediate biological demand for the drug. And Los Angeles, with its sprawling transient encampments, provides a vast landscape where someone can just disappear into anonymity.
So the manager hasn't seen her since 2015. Her mom is frantically searching morgue databases. What finally shatters the silence is a video.
Right. The Skid Row video.
In late 2025, footage surfaced online of Daveigh living in a tent on LA's Skid Row. Her mother described seeing the footage as deeply disturbing. She noted that Daveigh was frail, severely emaciated, clearly under the heavy influence of narcotics, and actively trying to push the intrusive camera away.
It was undeniable, visceral proof of how far the trapdoor had dropped her. It stripped away any of those lingering, comforting industry narratives that she was merely living quietly off the grid.
And this Skid Row video is what prompted her manager, John Ryan Jr., to finally go public.
Because he had been working on a documentary, right?
Yeah, he revealed he had actually been working on a documentary called Finding Lilo. But his reasoning for his long silence, I am genuinely struggling to process this.
It's definitely a controversial stance.
I have to push back on his stated logic here. Ryan admits that for years, he kept quiet about her disappearance because he wanted to, quote, protect the brand.
Wow.
He hoped she would come back, and the public would simply assume she had gracefully retired. He said it wasn't until he saw that video that his mentality shifted from protect the brand to protect the girl.
It's a tough quote to hear.
I am sorry, but how does a manager watch a client vanish for years, and his primary instinct is to protect a corporate image? Why would you protect a brand over a human life that is clearly in danger?
I completely understand the outrage there. I really do. Hearing a phrase like protect the brand when a human being is missing feels unimaginably callous. It feels almost sociopathic to us on the outside.
It really does.
But to understand the manager's paralysis, we have to look closely at the systemic and legal boundaries surrounding adult addiction. It's a massive structural failure.
Break that down for me, because right now it just sounds like prioritizing Hollywood optics over a literal rescue mission.
Legally and practically, the boundaries protecting an adult's autonomy are ironclad. You cannot legally force a 30-something-year-old woman into a car, drive her to a long-term rehab facility, and physically make her stay against her will.
You just can't do it.
No, and you cannot force the police to track down an adult who has the legal right to be unhoused and does not wish to be found by her family or management. Families and representatives often hit this brutal wall of legal helplessness.
So even if they knew where she was, their hands were tied?
Often, yes. If they go public too early and declare an emergency, they trigger a media circus.
And the paparazzi get involved?
Exactly, and that public humiliation frequently drives the addict further underground into more dangerous hiding spots.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, if you out an actor's severe addiction to the industry prematurely, you risk permanently destroying the very career that might financially save them if they ever do achieve sobriety.
Ah, I see.
So the manager's delay, while shocking and clumsily phrased as protecting the brand, is frequently a trauma response in itself. It is the misguided, desperate hope that the person will miraculously fix themselves before the world sees them broken.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because the legal wall of adult autonomy essentially functions as an impenetrable shield for the addiction itself.
It really does.
And that transitions us into the final days, where the narrative completely fractures. We are presented with these dizzying, conflicting accounts of extreme poverty clashing with a shocking revelation of immense wealth.
And this fragmentation is deeply characteristic of the end stages of severe addiction. The individuals involved are operating in completely different realities.
Let's start with the narrative presented by the man claiming to be her boyfriend, Roy Hernandez. He's the individual who initially confirmed her death to the press.
Right.
But prior to her passing, he launched 3 separate GoFundMe pages asking for public donations.
3 of them.
3. According to his narrative, he claimed Daveigh was homeless because of a bitter dispute with her mother. He claimed she had been hospitalized, that the doctors informed him the medicine wasn't working and she was actively passing away.
Okay.
And he said that she made the conscious choice to leave the hospital to spend her final days comfortably with him, rather than dying in a sterile medical facility.
And you immediately see fierce pushback against that narrative from both her mother and her manager.
Oh, absolutely. Cathy vehemently denies the core of his story. She insists she never kicked Daveigh out and never abandoned her child.
Of course.
She states Daveigh simply wanted the freedom to use drugs without oversight, choosing to associate with the wrong people. Meanwhile, the manager questions the boyfriend's identity entirely, stating the family has absolutely no idea who this man even is.
Which is so unsettling.
But the most jarring detail involves those GoFundMe pages. While this man is publicly asking for donations to support a homeless woman, the manager reveals that Daveigh wasn't broke.
This is the financial paradox at the absolute center of this tragedy.
Because John Ryan reveals that Daveigh had millions of dollars sitting untouched in a SAG trust account.
Wait, millions?
Millions. These were unclaimed residual checks stemming specifically from her ongoing voice work as Lilo.
Wow.
We're talking about global merchandise sales, theme park attractions that run thousands of times a day, video games, all of these continuous revenue streams.
It's a massive franchise.
Exactly. So, we have a woman legally entitled to a multi-million-dollar fortune, actively dying of severe malnutrition in a tent on Skid Row. How does the financial safety net fail that spectacularly?
It fails because financial institutions, trusts, and residual systems are designed exclusively for stable, functioning adults.
What do you mean?
Well, to claim accumulated funds from a Screen Actors Guild trust, you have to navigate strict bureaucracy. You need a valid, unexpired government identification.
Right.
You need a permanent mailing address to receive tax documents. You need to physically sign legal paperwork. And you need an active bank account in your name to transfer the funds into.
And severe addiction strips away every single one of those administrative capabilities.
Exactly. If you are living on the street, your purse gets stolen. You lose your ID. You obviously don't have a mailing address. You lose the executive brain function required to even make a bank appointment.
That is heartbreaking.
The money is legally guaranteed to her, but the disease of addiction creates a practical barrier that is as thick as a bank vault door. The bureaucracy cannot distinguish between a person who doesn't want their money and a person medically incapable of claiming it.
So the fortune just sits there, completely untouchable, while her physical body begins to shut down from a lack of basic calories.
Yes.
Let's look at the medical mechanics of her passing, because it wasn't an overdose. She passed away from meningitis and a blood infection that led to septic complications, all stemming from being hospitalized for severe malnutrition.
This is the biological cascade of end-stage poverty and addiction. When a human body experiences severe, prolonged malnutrition, it begins to cannibalize its own resources to survive.
It attacks itself.
Yes. The immune system is one of the first systems to fundamentally collapse. The white blood cell count plummets. When that happens, opportunistic infections that a healthy body would easily fight off, like meningitis, which inflames the membranes around the brain, and spinal cord, can sweep in unopposed.
And that localized infection spreads to the bloodstream.
Correct. The blood infection triggers sepsis, which is essentially the body's extreme systemic response to infection, rapidly leading to tissue damage, organ failure, and death. It is a direct mechanical result of starvation destroying her immune defenses.
Wow. And as for the conflicting stories surrounding those final days, between the boyfriend's GoFundMe claims and the family's outrage, we are not here to assign malice or pick a side.
No, absolutely not.
What this starkly illuminates is how addiction creates chaos. The boyfriend might genuinely believe his narrative, viewing himself as providing comfort in a grim situation. The mother unequivocally knows she never stopped loving or desperately searching morgue databases for her child. Addiction forces everyone into an emotional survival mode, where their specific version of the truth is the only reality they can endure.
And the devastating postscript to that financial paradox is the question of inheritance.
Yes. Because Daveigh passed away without accessing the funds, her next of kin, her father, is now poised to inherit the unclaimed millions.
The fortune outlived her.
It did. And the mother's final moments with her daughter reflect the ultimate heartbreaking helplessness of this entire story. Cathy said when she first saw the news reports of Daveigh's death, Her brain rejected it.
She couldn't process it.
She thought it was fake news. It wasn't until reputable sites started confirming it that reality set in, and she described letting out a guttural, primeval scream in her backyard.
And even when she finally located her daughter, the barriers remained.
Yes. Because of the highly infectious nature of the meningitis and the systemic sepsis, the hospital protocols prevented Cathy from physically touching her child.
That is just, I have no words.
After searching for 10 years, she had to identify her daughter through a pane of glass. She stood there, touching the window, praying with a hospital chaplain.
It is an incredibly raw, devastating visual summary of the entire tragedy. A mother separated by a physical barrier at the very end, just as she had been separated by the invisible barriers of addiction and bureaucracy for a decade.
When we zoom out from the timeline, the conflicting accounts, and the sheer tragedy, what are we ultimately left with? Let's bring this deep dive full circle.
Let's do that.
I want to look back at a quote from a 2009 interview Daveigh did with Interview magazine. She was young, her career was thriving across multiple genres, and the interviewer asked about her long-term goals. She replied, "I want to do things that will change someone's life, not something they'll forget about tomorrow."
It is profoundly moving to hear those words in retrospect, because despite the devastating circumstances of her final years, she objectively achieved that artistic goal.
She absolutely did. Her voice work as Lilo is permanently immortalized in animation history. That specific character taught millions of children around the world the concept of ohana, the beautiful idea that family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten.
It is a legacy of pure warmth, acceptance, and belonging.
It really is.
The devastating irony, of course, is that the massive systems and societal safety nets surrounding the actor who gave voice to that unifying message completely failed to catch her. She fell through the trapdoor, and society ultimately left her behind.
It is a heavy, incredibly complicated legacy. We are looking at a brilliant generational talent swallowed by a biological trapdoor, millions of dollars locked behind bureaucratic red tape, and a family left grieving behind a pane of medical glass. But her artistic contributions remain indelible.
And examining her story raises vital questions about how we, as a culture, consume media and the ethical responsibilities of the massive industries that create it.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own after you finish listening. Consider the strange, enduring, and highly lucrative nature of child stardom.
It's a massive industry.
Tomorrow, a family will go to a theme park, they will ride an attraction, or they will buy a piece of merchandise featuring a beloved character's voice. The corporations holding those rights will profit off that childhood voice today, tomorrow, and decades into the future.
Long after the recording sessions are over.
So where does the entertainment industry's responsibility to the actual fragile human being behind that voice begin and end? Do the massive systems and studios that profit endlessly off the captured youth of child stars owe them a lifelong duty of care, especially when they suffer profound physical or psychological trauma?
Or is the transaction permanently over the exact moment the recording session ends?
It is something to seriously think about the next time you hear a familiar, comforting voice from your own childhood. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.